part two of my story because I apparently ran out of whatever time of footage I could have. I am grateful that my aunt allowed me that discipline because it allowed me to focus on exercising and it allowed me to develop art skills that I would not have had if it were not for that lesson, that particular scenario. So I'm grateful for that. A lot of this played a part later, but yeah. So as all this built up to that, 15, this is where this was, and so on. I started exercising again. I learned a game of basketball called push-ups, and I was moved around a lot, eventually running into the imposter my mom, though I wasn't aware it was an imposter at the time, though I still knew something was off. We had a lot of arguments. One time she tried to knife me in my sleep. Literally in the back while I was asleep. Anyways, as things continued, I was eventually shipped to another hospital, and things just continued for a while, then eventually to foster homes, and so on, until I was about 17. Just before my 18th birthday, in the end of spring, I had finally, with all this jumping around, finally managed to complete high school, and then I was told that because I was missing 2 credit hours, they wouldn't let me graduate. I would have to go another year, just 2 credit hours, and I would have to do everything, including things that weren't essay, classes and hours that weren't essay, just to get those 2 credits to win. So I'd have to do like the full 8 credit hour scenario of school just for 2 credits. So basically a waste of 6 credit hours of a school year just to freaking. And I was like, no. Like, well, you can get your GED. I'm like, whoa, is there anything you can do? No. And mom's like, you know what? Fine, I'm done. I'll just get my GED. I've already learned what I need to. I've done all the education, everything I need. There's really no reason to continue this. At this point, this is just stupid. And the people at the desk at the school were like, they couldn't even say anything, but they were in agreement. They just like, like it's just one of those situations, and it's like, meh. Anyways, things, I said, I'm gonna take a break before I go to college. I'm not gonna go to college for a while. I'm gonna wait. When I hit 18, I gained some independence and autonomy over my life and situations, so I started working on a lot of things. 19, I started learning parkour, and it was around 2011 and 10 that I was in Carlsbad and I started learning, and I was thinking, it looks like it's time to go to college. So I decided I was going to go to college and get my GED, and so in 2011 fall, I got my GED, and then in 2012 spring, I started college at NMSU Carlsbad, and this is where everything kind of hit main gear. So regarding this, at NMSU Carlsbad, I was attending. I started off as a pharmaceutical major due to interest in that because a pharmacist I talked to when I was 16 had interested in it. But eventually, not even a semester, and I dropped that because I didn't want to subscribe to the idea of a pill to fix it. Though I knew from all my studies since I was 12 that, neurochemical transmit what pills before, I knew people were not going to use them properly, and I knew I wasn't going to be part of one to support that. And so I switched to something else. So I asked the counselors at the school if there was anything like the same idea I was going for to help those in those situations that didn't go through what I went through, but not with that. And they mentioned that basically a non-clinical or a counseling-based psychology without a psychiatry with no actual medical degree to license to sell medications, but everything else would be good. So I switched from pharmaceutical to psychology. Odd how that came for a circle. And I met my best friend in 2012, fall. I still remember the day we met. I was walking through school. I had recently gotten onto Facebook, which was just getting going. Two people I knew before had got me into this, but I hadn't really made friends with them. We were still kind of acquaintances and getting to know each other. A lot of people saying I had already had honors that semester. And I was walking there, getting ready. It was near the end of the day. I was ready to go home, waiting for my ride to go home. And I walked by and saw this girl drawing. I noticed the art, thought it was interesting. I had the ability to read people very well, so I looked at her and I was like, she seems very shy. Maybe she's introverted, or maybe she doesn't like to talk to people, but I want to say hi, but I need an icebreaker. Why not her art? That's what I noticed about her when I walked up. I said, that's nice art. You are talent. She paused in the middle of drawing, looked up, kind of weird over mouth, kind of just like, huh? I'm like, I pointed at her drawing pad. I said, that's nice art. You have talent. She looked down at her art, looked up. Oh, thank you. I sat down in the chair next to her, a little perpendicular from her sofa where she was sitting in the area of the school. And I started talking to her about it. I told her that even my brother didn't have the talent she did. He didn't. I've seen my brother's work and hers was much better. She could literally have been a mangaka at the time. She could have literally drawn for comics and manga and animation, and turns out she was an art major. So it worked. But yeah, we talked for a while, and she was actually late for class because she spent so much time talking to me that first time. It wasn't until she looked at her clock and realized, oh no, she's late for class. She was like 30 minutes late because she was waiting on a class, and then she talked to me until she was 30 minutes late. Then she ran to class, and eventually I went home. But it was nice. 3 days later, met Lindsay Marie Greenbaum, another friend of mine. It was at one point while we were talking that throughout the years at NMS Goswood that she mentioned about someone who saved George when she was younger, apparently from a very bad scenario, and someone who had saved her, and I realized that those scenarios were me. I wasn't even aware that she was the girl I helped, or nor that her parent was someone I helped who happened to be a police officer, so that was very interesting. But I didn't say anything, even though I noted what she had said. I just kind of thought, so you're his daughter. So this is interesting. Anyways, as time went on, 2013 fall hit. I joined Associated Students, which is the student government work situation. They pretty much ran the school. I was a student and an employee of the school simultaneously. I got my best friend and other people. I figured she wanted to use her to help people, so I figured to give her the opportunity. And so she did. I let her be publicist and kind of worked with the team. I became treasurer. And then a few days in, roughly exactly the same day I met Lisa, Veronica. She just walks into this and she's like, hi, I heard the associations weren't supposed to work. She had just gotten out of high school. A few days later, correlating with when I met Lindsay, she brought in her best friend. She said something about his best friend. She also brought her in the day after she basically signed up for work. She came in, we tornadoed to Mario. She brought her best friend Crystal, who was happened to be a girl who I had actually saved and helped twice. Once by running out in front of a moving car. She almost got ran over, both by when I was helping her walk and over towards elementary school. And then once when people were eyeing her because she was hungry, and I realized they were just going to take advantage of her and try to kill her. So I had bought some food, and so instead I intercepted. They were still in line, so I gave her the only food I had and then went home. She was grateful, but they never touched her. They were a little pissed because I noticed their eyes narrowed at me. And since I didn't do anything, they seemed really perturbed, but I was 15 at the time. And when I was younger, I was like 10 when I ran out from the car to help her, so apparently all of these, I had met these people before around Carlsbad, and apparently it'd all be full circle, a small town, you know? But anyways, they were a lot younger than I am. Some of them not so much though, a few were only like a year younger or so. I made many friends there, a daughter of the Team Center, her name was Sarah Barnes. Team Center was the tutoring center. But yeah, I had also in 2013, a couple weeks after I met Lindsay, met Wyatt, who had also added on to his assistants later. He was activities coordinator. And a lot of these just kind of happened this way. I noticed a pattern over the years. And anyways, 2014 happened. Things continued. I got a Christmas present from my best friend as well as the person I was supposed to be Secret Santa for. So 2 people, I got 2 presents. But my best friend wasn't able to attend. So I got a present out of niceness because the present I was Santa for, I got it for him. And then The other person, my best friend wasn't able to get a Christmas, so I was the one who wanted to get it for her. Nobody else did, oddly enough. But I gave it to her. I went into the store and got a ring, jewelry. I figured probably people hadn't bought her jewelry. But I gave it to her, and it was that point where she had been able to block my reading of her. I didn't even remember that I could read her and then she dropped her guard here. This one moment when I was handing her this, like, here is a Christmas present, and her thoughts were, if I was down on one knee, and I was like, it's just a friend. I haven't thought about it, but I guess I kind of gave up that impression. I decided to have sensibility and start building. Was that, rather than leaving her hanging. One point, I tried to kiss her and told her, don't freak out. She freaked out. She found a pat, she just jumped back. Like, she was fine with it up to a certain point, and then she seemed to, realize what was going on, and just right at the last moment, snap back and seemed to kind of be embarrassed and regret it. Like, I'm going to do something, just don't freak out. She's like, okay. And, as our lips came closer, it was right before the end when she just suddenly, her eyes just snapped open, and then she just jumped back from whatever dreamy state she was in, and then she seemed to regret it and realized that she had ruined the moment. The moment was over, and she looked like she was about to cry. We discussed things, and after a while I asked her where things were, and she said I was a good friend, and so we just kind of left it at that. This was 2014, in the Associate Students when that happened. I gave her the ring, and yeah. Anyways, in May or April of 2013, roughly, apparently something weird was going on with the people in the house. Apparently, the prior summer, my brother had noticed that the woman in the house was beating the crap out of her new husband with a board with nails, and was very upset because his wife at the time was not happy and was scared, and he just wanted to leave at that point. But he told them that if they could stuff, they were just gonna leave. I told him I did not blame him, and he said that if anything would ever happen or I need to leave, I was welcome in his house. And that came to call here. Finally had lost everything. She had basically she lost control of everything. All this, so did he. And yeah, I had had enough. I told them I was leaving. It was in the scenario where I tried to keep them on me. They were chasing me onto the bus to school. I couldn't go to school, and I was just getting to the point where I'd had more and more of enough, and so at one point I jumped a rock, and he came running out with a baseball bat. He tried to swing at me. Eventually I had to disarm him with the bat, and so we just got running to get him to not run onto the bus and hurt the bus driver. Anyways, I went on to college. From there, I told them I was leaving, I was done, I'm gonna come out with the offer, I'm out. I'm moving out. They seemed more surprised that I was able to do so. He was very surprised that I somehow was able to disarm him and toss the bat to the back fence and knock him to the ground. So everyone in the present before he knew what was going on, he was very surprised. I had never really done so in spite of all their false accusations. When I did something, I caught him off guard because I was generally so quiet, and I was still calm about it, and I just did so, and that was it. I got on the bus and left. The professor kind of smirked and kind of seemed amused at the scenario as what he had just seen. Not sure what it was like for him when everything just slowed down when I tried to focus on the bat, but that's not the point here. I got to school, my hand that I got the bat with, apparently the accelerated increased forces did not work very well. I was trying to type, and my friends asked me what was going on because my hand hurt, and I noted that I hadn't told them anything about what was going on at home, so I explained the scenario. They got me to the hospital ruled that I had busted nerves in my hand, but it was just enough that it was a problem, but not enough that they could do anything about it. And in that little window, they could do nothing but let me continue to go. Anyways, at this point that I was leaving, my friend Veronica said, let's throw a going away party. And so the associate students did. A lot of friends were there. I invited a lot of people. Nobody showed up. We had our end of the year closing of the party, and then I moved in that May to go with my brother. And I went to NMSU Maine. It was time for me to transfer. I had nothing left. I was mostly staying I was already well past, basically, for staying my welcome at Henry Carlsbad just for my friends. And since I made the choice after what happened, I guess I don't really regret what I did, but It probably would have been better if I hadn't actually left and I just made the same choice and decided, fuck it, because the education went the same way in the end. I got into Nurse Maine. I realized that their exes had already headed me off. A little context on this. Throughout discuss about while I was telling my friends, they asked me for help regarding my knowledge, as I had basically defaulted during my studies to relationship psychology, as that seemed to be a pretty prevalent problem. And their whoever basically they told no to or otherwise broke up with, or got freed from manipulation, was not happy with me and had a tendency to get very antagonistic as well. My friends were already aware of this. They asked me what was going on. I'm like, okay, and I said, yeah, and they said, why do I do this? And I said, so they don't have to, and they said, why would I do that? As it was said, basically for them, they said, why would I do that? So I don't have to, and like, so you don't have to, and they're like, why would you do that to yourself? And I'm like, I can handle it, you guys can't. And at that point, I just kind of left it alone. I knew that basically these guys attacked them when they were vulnerable, and I usually was the one to stand as a shield. Like always, I would stand up against bullies. College was no different. But, in this, I moved to Nurse Maine, and those people had already basically decided to preempt me. And that was that semester of fall of 2014 that everything just went to shit. They continued to try to harass, antagonize me, gaslight, lie, fraud, but I was not having it. I had already seen way more than that. And I looked right at them like, nope, you're a liar. I'd already told my friends that true friends don't listen to random hearsay or idle chatter or third parties. They talk to find a question, they check the source, so on. Don't just believe because people say so. I'd give them a mini card and other helps like that. So I expected it. So when these guys tried this, I contacted my friends, even though the guy's like, stay away from them. Like, you already told you no one will shoot a restraining order against your ass. You're a dumbass, you don't have anything to say about it. So I call my friends like, hey, what's this about? Is this now? Is everything okay? Did this happen? Like, no, they're just, what's going on? Like, no, you're great, you're this, yeah, we're fine. Like, yeah, well, they're doing this, that, so. Like, oh, yeah, don't listen to them. Yeah, we already know. They already said they were going to do that. You know that. They already thought they were going to try to twist or pin it on me. They said, don't listen to them, and so I had kept my end of the friendship until the day, and things were cool. And then these guys decided to cut off our communication and start intercepting communications and interfering telecommunications. And this has continued on to this day. Apparently they sided with the terrorists, who apparently were still trying to attack and antagonize our country as the war of terror was still going. And all this just kind of culminated at NSU Maine, the imposter, my mom, who I only found out a little bit after this. I didn't know this at the time, was trying to blackmail and threaten me because I had left. She was harassing me. All this stuff, trying to usurp the school, and everybody was this, and everything just kind of hit the fan. And apparently also attract the attention of a cult, and just a whole bunch of random who knows what, all just kind of at once. And under all of this, I had also tried to take on 18 credit hours, and I had to regress that, and then they messed with my financial aid, which a lot of people at the school weren't getting under. They messed with the food systems and the payment systems at NMSU Maine. And everybody was aware of this, and I had pointed out that it was probably them and a whole bunch of other stuff because they continued to confront me and so on. And the dean decided just to write everything with administrative order in the end and let me start fresh the next semester and just wipe everything because this was just complete and utter bullshit. And January starts. I had met a new girl who apparently looked like my best friend, weirdly enough. Her name was Desiree. She also had the same birthday and was the same age and had a similar major and was almost identical to my friend, except that she was extroverted and my friend was introverted. I was really wondering if this was like some kind of twin scenario. Turned out later it was. They were separated at birth by these same idiots who placed us just all the way back at the hospital when we were born, which is why I mentioned that and started there, because all this is relevant to people who were interfering during our childhood. Were these people, and it was all the same people, which makes it sound really disgusting. That kind of perversion is disgusting. But yes, that is how that went. And then in MSU Maine, they frauded and tried to falsely get me kicked off the school many times. It did not work. So they resorted to sabotaging because I wouldn't actually listen to my friends or anything. I wouldn't listen to the idiots or anything. And things were getting closer. They were about to lose, so they sided with people they shouldn't. And all this kind of roped together. They falsely dressed the police and tried to take the responsibilities of manipulating the system that the system told them when they were told no kind of tried to issue them and try to say them to me. I didn't have any of it. They decided the best thing to do was kick me out of the picture. But first they wanted to try to kill me and kill them. Kill my friends. They figured if they couldn't have them, no one could. And it was ordered with them trying a whole bunch of weird orchestration of ways to kill us and separate us, and then they realized the best thing to do was take advantage of our kindness. So they placed Crystal in a scenario where one of them was going to barrel down and run her over in January of 2015. And on January 3rd, 2015, at 3:47 p.m., I was there, trying to help outside the Gospel Rescue Mission in the Community of Hope. And as one left in the Community of Hope after giving a backpack of food, Krista was standing in the road trying to pick up a coin, and there comes the car barreling down at speed it shouldn't, and I run out in front of the road, get her out from the road, and I get hit by the car myself. I have really dense bones and a lot of other things, but that's not really the point here. I died. I'm guessing that's not new nowadays to a lot of people. But, yeah. I didn't even know it at the time. Anyways, to my point, I went straight from basically returning the, giving the backpack of food to the Community of Hope, to basically reattending school without realizing there was something in between those. Anyways, that evening, I was approached by the cult, who apparently realized that they couldn't kill me. And so they decided, well, they'll try to see if they offer me to join them. I looked at them, they tried to bribe me, I said no, everything was okay. They tried to manipulate, they even threatened my friends, and I'm like, meh. And then they offered me some weird bracelet, and said if I want to help them this, I promptly decided to defy the bracelet, and I sarcastically put it on, and it broke. I broke their bracelet. Then I let the piece fall on the floor, and I was like, don't work on me, assholes. And I walked off. They were not happy about that. There was a guy standing on the second floor of whatever building. It was off towards the eastern side of NMSU. I don't know what this building or housing situation was, but he was standing on the second floor balcony watching this while a bunch of dogs overran someone they were using to try to tell me that's what they wanted me to help. I walked off, and I guess that's where I kind of made a problem. At that point, the FBI, who had been talking to me since January 2014, asked me what's going on. A year had passed, and so they issued me a badge and a name, Carlia, and told me that there was anything else that they noticed. And I noticed anything about what's going on in the terrorism conspiracies, cults, or anything. I was assigned to spiritual crimes, as it involves spiritual matters, and just to let them know. And so I made sure I started recording things and leaving various little, logs and other stuff around, letting the dean know and other points, and making sure I get my reports going. And around mid of January, they decided they'd had enough. So these terrorists decided to kidnap me. Funny, on my first mission, I go MIA. Wow. Anyways, apparently, they try to falsely arrest me, and it doesn't work. I have already notified people what's going on. They're already aware, so of the FBI, other people. Also, one point when I mentioned a conspiracy to the dean, I wasn't referring to a government anything, but I was just mentioning two more people working together for crime because people were plotting to try to transform the school from an education point to a party point. But apparently, these guys got word of it, possibly because I mentioned to Danielle, who worked at the front desk, who was one of the people to listen to my story then. I told her what was going on, so apparently they might have overheard it through someone eavesdropping around that part of Corbett. So they confronted me about something about a satanic government conspiracy and how I was saying this and that. And I was like, I said nothing of the sort. But I was thinking, interesting. Why on earth would you bring that up? Nobody's brought that up. So, are you saying that's real? Are you part of that? They were dressed as police, and I'm like, interesting. And I said nothing, pretty much provided a wall, and they kept bombarding it, and eventually spilled the beans. In front of everybody in Corbett. Anyways, this fast forward to the middle of January, where they tried to kidnap me, and an entire crowd of students formed of like 75% of the school, staff, teachers, students, everything, in a gigantic ring. They were not going to stand for the shit. Everybody had had enough already. A revolution had begun. Rebellion was in order. And they threw me in the van, left my shoes there, took everything, and even tried to just falsely knock me to the ground. They witnessed it firsthand. I was also part of Young Americans for Liberty, as was 2 honors groups of MSU Maine. That of Young Americans for Liberty at the time was Marisa Salazar, and we've been discussing this scenario, and I was a very prominent advocate about this corruption in the system. So I was very much against all this, so I was very helpful to that organization regarding that. And they loved me for that, but as things went on, they tried to kidnap me, these terrorists kidnapped me, and tried to tell me something about my mental state. And then when I got to the hospital in my medical clinic, they changed their story quite a few times. Apparently something about attacking people on campus, which sounds more like them, and something about the dean issuing something of certain scenarios, and that I'm apparently banned from NMSU. This is the fraudulent false ban they were trying to do before. It didn't work. Anyways, they prevented me from talking to the dean, tried to stall from any point of appeal, and under this false guise of police and law enforcement and the hospital, tried to orchestrate false diagnoses, mentioning they needed someone to evaluate me, whether I needed to be admitted to Mississippi Valley Hospital, but they didn't have a psychologist, so they needed to admit me to Mississippi Valley Hospital to evaluate me, whether I needed to be admitted. This idea of placing you in a scenario, a system, in order to evaluate whether you need to stay there or whether they can keep you there, rather than any type of trial or any other evaluation beforehand, to see whether you need to go there in the first damn place. If that ain't a trap, I don't know what is. I thought this in the hospital, and they falsely tried to issue a sedative, which, they called it a sedative, but it wasn't a sedative. It didn't help me sleep, though then again, most of those don't work on me. I even just put myself to sleep. I just let myself, control, sleep cycles from my knowledge of psychology and sleep stages. I'm starting to run out of time. We'll probably get to a part 3 in this, but they shipped me off to Mississippi Valley Hospital. Probably getting into part 3 for this. And it was there that they started with changing their story again, something about paranoia and everybody. They twisted my word. They asked me the scenarios. I mentioned that what they were doing and what was going on. They brought up the conspiracy thing again. And they said I can't be the one right and everybody else is wrong. And I said, well, I'm not. Certain people are. And they interrupted me with a bunch of whiny, temper tantrum, loud background noise, and see, he thinks everybody's problem. The doctor apparently bought this. The doctor didn't give a shit about diagnosis. When I got a lawyer and they tried to assign me someone from the system to force me to take their medications, as I continued to tell them, no, I have the right to refuse treatment. So they've tried to force treatment upon me by assigning what's called a treatment guardian. They eventually had the court to do so, but the doctor in question got fired, and for my case, because my lawyer noted this, and I managed to catch him in the courtrooms regarding where they assigned this. They have courts in Mississippi, that's where they assign this, which should not be legal. But the lawyer, they assigned people in there, if I need to. So we got the doctor off the case, but I got the treatment guardian. His first order of business was to remove the doctor from the case. Get me a new doctor. They didn't have another doctor, so they tried another doctor. That didn't work. They tried and went to the person who runs the school, Dr. Flores, who, funny enough, was also the name of a doctor at 2 years old who had assigned me over to a program. I didn't know this at the time, but what they were doing with me caused me to have weird things. So it might have not been them. It might have been the FBI, because at 2 hours, I assigned over to a super soldier program. And I find Dr. Flores was there and somehow tricked my mom into falsely trying to help me, because the only way she could help me was by allowing me to be subject to this experimentation program. This experimentation was called Government Orchestrated Biochemical Engineered Superhuman Experimentation Program, Carlia. Put a colon after the acronym of those words. It's GOBASEP Carlia, which apparently was also my agent name. Odd coincidence. Those coincidences are just non-mutually exclusive events. A and B share a common outcome. You want to talk about what that is, and that's mathematical. They do exist. But I'm running out of time, and it's going to cut me off soon, so I'm going to continue this, and we'll continue part 3 when it cuts me off. So, at this point, they moved me through Mississippi Hospital, eventually releasing me to my sister, who had moved to Los, or whatever the town is outside of Alamogordo. I don't remember its name now. But yeah, it's a little town off of Alamogordo. It's a little village. Something or whatever. But yeah, I was out there, and eventually I tried to do a lot of things I couldn't. They have a lot of what was going on there. I found out what was going on. It was there that I also uncovered that the person who was my mom wasn't my mom. She was an imposter who tried to kill my mom and had killed many people and was trying to impersonate her and was actually manipulating Robert. She used that to brag and try to intimidate me because I at one point told her, and I found a lot of things about how she wasn't my mom, so I confronted her about this, and her response was, maybe I'm not her son. And she started proceeding this rant because she couldn't convince me or manipulate me about all this trying to intimidate me, and I just kind of listened to all this while she ranted this in the middle of my trailer park to everyone who could hear in the village and town. And then I still didn't listen, and I just let it go, and then I wrote down most of this, and then that paper got stolen. I listed everything. She was apparently an assassin. And I had listed a whole bunch of things, including where the cults were, who they targeted, and so on. That papers there. I can still write that down and give you that list. Everything who they target, what they have their foot in, everything. And I will probably do so if I can. But I have all of this, and I'm supposed